This is All Things Ansys, a podcast from the technical support staff at PADT. Episode 120, we talk about Ansys and sustainability and look at news and events in the world of Ansys. Greetings, my name is Eric Miller, and I'm one of the owners here at PDT and your host of these podcasts. I want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July. Yes, I'm recording this on the morning of July 4th because I had July 1st and 2nd and 3rd to do it, and I put it off. So my family is out and about, and I'm sneaking this in. So, yeah, here we are. I do encourage everyone to partake in a little ritual that I just finished. I usually do it every 4th of July on or about that date, and I read the entire Declaration of Independence from start to finish. So I look it up on the internet and read it. I just did that, and it is still as inspiring as the first time I really read it in depth all those years ago while in elementary school back in Virginia. So, a little ritual that I pass along. Hopefully somebody will take it up. It's kind of important to remember what the holiday is really about. And an update to our regular listeners, one of the reasons why I'm inside is the weather here in Phoenix is hot. We had one of the mildest Junes on record, which I talked about last episode, but it's July now, and it was 113 Fahrenheit yesterday, which is 45 Celsius for those of you who use that scale. It will be about the same today and the rest of the week, and then they expect us to get in the 115s or higher next week. So our record is 122 back in 1990. That's 50 degrees Celsius. I doubt we will get above 120, but you never know. Watch the news. And speaking of 120, this is episode 120. Good news is we just passed 40,000 downloads last month. So that's really, really cool. And if you do the math, we're getting about 338 downloads per episode. So after our lengthy break there, where I kind of neglected the podcast for a while, our downloads are climbing back up again, and it seems to be the once a month pace that seems to be popular. So we'll keep doing that. So I just want to thank everybody for listening and spreading the word about the podcast. So next up is our interview. And one of my favorite things to do on this podcast is to talk with people from Ansys who I am proud to call a friend. And today I get to talk to just such a person. So let's go ahead and listen in and learn a bit more about Ansys and their efforts around sustainability. I want to welcome everybody today to our interview, and it's a little bit different. We're going to be talking about Ansys products, but we're not going to be diving into a particular physics or piece of software. We're going to talk about Ansys's efforts in the sustainability world. And I am joined today by someone I've known for quite a while, and a real pleasure to have her on the call, Pepi Maksimovic. And I am not going to try and explain what you do for Ansys. I'm going to ask you to let our listeners know how you got into simulation and what you do for Ansys.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. All right. So my current role at Ansys is a distinguished engineer, and my primary focus is on sustainability. So what does that mean? I work closely together with our customers, clients, to understand their initiatives that are tied to reduction of environmental impact of their product, their operations, and to help them towards achieving their sustainability goals by applying modeling and simulation, so Ansys tools. Mm-hmm. As to your question, why I got in simulation, mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like a little bit winded answer, but I mean, I've always loved natural sciences. I've always been curious as to, why certain things are in nature the way they are, just the natural world around me. Mm-hmm. So I guess that curiosity and interest in learning, discovery, technologies led me to study engineering. And originally I started off as an experimentalist in mm-hmm. physics of fluids. But then, that kind of naturally progressed into experimentation on a computer, which is simulation. Right. So It's kind of like just a different version of the same thing, really.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. And we've known each other for a long time when you were at Fluent and then Ansys on the fluid side. And I That's think right. that someone as experienced as you being given this role kind of shows the commitment that Ansys has. And I So my first interface with the sustainability at Ansys is probably about 15 years ago with the former CEO, Jim Cashman. And I said, Jim, what are you guys doing about being green, being sustainable? And he says, Eric, that's all we do. And I said, why? And he said, because our software makes everybody's product more efficient. And whether that's burning less carbon or emitting less carbon or using less electricity or using less material to build it, everything we do about optimizing products really impacts sustainability. And I was kind of like, oh, yeah, well, you need to market that. Well, at that time, they didn't spend any money on marketing, but now they do. And I'm really proud to see it. And I want to talk about the product side, but to begin with, can you just kind of give us an overview of Ansys's overall commitment to sustainability?
Yeah, sure. So, you've noticed the past several years that a lot of companies are focused on sustainability. They've set their carbon reduction goals, targets and so forth. And Ansys, here in Ansys, we are doing the same. So, we're a software company, engineering software company. So obviously we don't have manufacturing facilities, et cetera.
Right.
And our carbon footprint is relatively small in comparison to other companies and really comes from computing, right? The electricity that's produced in US, most of it comes from fossil fuels, thus has a carbon footprint. And so when we do computing, essentially there's associated carbon footprint to that computing. Nevertheless, Ansys has set a carbon emission reduction target we'll shave off 15% of our carbon by 2027. Also, we have a ESG, program that it's led. So obviously we have, annual reporting and monitoring, just like any other company. And on top of that, really, like I said, since we don't manufacture and make anything physical, really the benefit, I guess I would say, that we can provide to the world when it comes to sustainability truly is the product handprint. Right. What it means putting our product, our technology, our solution in the hands of other people that can use that software to create essentially some environmental benefit, meaning, reduce the emission, reduce the environmental pollution by creating cleaner, better, more sustainable technologies and products and so forth, operations.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and in fact, if anybody is interested in what Ansys is doing for their kind of overall corporate ESG, we always recommend you check out the investors page. They have a lot of good information there. So if you go to investors.ansys.com/ESG, you can actually see their annual reports, and the 2022 one is out there. And,
that's right.
It's got Joe on the front cover, which is kind of cool. It's another senior fellow, retired now, senior person at Ansys. But let's talk a little bit about the product thing. And I'm a turbo machinery guy. I think we first met when you worked at Honeywell as well, back in the day. Is that where people are using it? Is kind of the energy consumption side? Is it the energy production side? Is it everything? Where do you see most people applying it?
Yeah, it's a great question, Eric. And I know nowadays people are using it and everywhere, and it really is I would say a concern or a point of reflection to every single customer at every single industry. So, sometimes, we have a mental shortcut like sustainability equals just carbon reduction or emission reduction, just because there's so much narrative, right, in the news, the climate change, that it leads to the emissions. But beyond emission, it's really everything else around clean environment. So yes, it is emission, reducing the carbon emission or greenhouse gas emissions, but it's also about, clean, like I said, clean air, but it's also clean water. Right. It's clean soil. It's clean space above us. I mean, as humans, we've created a lot of space junk, so much debris and satellites and everything else that we've left above the Earth orbit. So it's about clean environment. But the other aspect of that is also, as you said, energy and energy solutions. I mean, before we can clean up or the precursor to every, essentially, decarbonization of the world is having access, reliable and affordable access to clean energy.
Right.
So, right now, about 80% of the energy that we produce in the world, in the U.S., and actually in the U.S., but it's very similar in a global scale, comes from fossil fuels, and less than 20% come from renewable energy, meaning wind, solar, hydro, and so forth. So we need to flip that around and, reduce the amount of carbon.
Right.
And at the same token, increase the amount of renewables. But that takes time, right? It takes effort, takes, funding and projects and everything. So while we're doing that, we also need to figure out how to integrate these, energy systems, the carbon and non-carbon or low-carbon solutions. The other part also of the equation when it comes to energy is how do we store the renewable energy longer term, right? Is it batteries? Well, batteries can store energy for a relatively short period of time, hours, a couple of days, but not beyond that. So we need this long-term energy storage solution. So there's a lot of research, technology development, efforts and attention going on there. When it comes to energy, another, like I said, mental shortcut these days is people immediately think about, electrification, right? Electric vehicles. Electric motors are everywhere. So everything, innovation around electric motors, around batteries, fast battery charging, the whole, system around, the power system around that, it's also another big area. And then obviously there's another third area, which is around materials. And the whole concept of circularity. I'm sure everybody has heard about circularity, circular economy. So what does that mean? So we have to be smart in what materials we're using. So it's not just is the material that we're using recyclable at the very end, where it's time to dispose of the product? At that point, it's almost too late, right? To kind of undo the product carbon footprint. But we need to put that ahead and start thinking, what are we going to, make the product that we're making out of, right? So making those smarter material selection choices. Also, can we go with less material? Can we make it lighter? So it still has the same performance, still, structural integrity and everything that it needs to have. But it's lighter, so it's using less material. So smart in packaging and so forth. The other important aspect also is safety, chemical safety. Is it safe to people? Is it safe to environment or the wildlife and so forth? And also, there's more and more regulations. So there's also aspect of when you look at the materials, does it comply and is it traceable? Can we trace it through the chain and make sure that we know what the final product, what exactly made, which material selections went into making a product. And then at the very end, it's really recycling and reusing. And also the concept of repairing, right? Right. Because products are so much more complicated today than they were used to be years ago, right? There's lots of software. Everything, is getting compressed. It needs to deliver more power, more energy, more performance, per square unit area or surface or volume or whatever, right? So there's more and more stuff kind of squished together, which makes it really difficult to, at the end, break apart and recycle, reuse, but at the same token makes it more difficult and sometimes impossible to just repair and fix it, right? It used to be that, in the olden days, people would, repair their cars. You would just open the hood or look around, poke around and fix it. It's getting more and more complicated with the embedded software and everything else. So that whole concept of can we repair it, reuse it? It's also an aspect of angle looking at sustainability. And then last but not least, manufacturing and operational efficiency. So, looking at how we're making something. I talked about materials we're using, but also a part of that is how were those materials themselves manufactured? And then when we use those materials to assemble and make a product, how are we going to manufacture that particular product, right? What techniques are we using? Can we for example, make it more energy efficient or with less water, or use less nasty chemicals and so forth.
Right.
So advanced manufacturing methods, perhaps can we, do 3D printing instead of traditional manufacturing methods, or, can we do it on-prem versus shipping it? So the whole concept is, if you think about a product, right, we use some material, we convert it into a product, and then we ship it somewhere to be used. So really, you have to look over that entire life cycle, perform analysis to see how sustainable every single step in making that product, delivering the product, using the product, and at the very end, like decisions that are made, what to do with the product when it's time to retire it, right, or put it away. All that needs to be taken into account. And when it comes to also, manufacturing and during the operation of the product, making some smart decisions instantaneously, real time, how the product behaves.
Right.
So using digital twins, prognostic health management, monitoring, so that we can optimize, make some, like I said, real life decisions in the moment. That also essentially has a sustainability impact, because it can reduce the carbon footprint. It can also provide environmental benefits as well.
Yeah.
And safety for people, safety for, environment, for the plants and the animals, the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
For all of us.
It's everywhere. It kind of makes me think, it really is every aspect of engineering can touch on sustainability. And now with such a broad product offering, we see it applied everywhere. I mean, maybe it's your embedded systems code, right? Which we can now we have tools for, or the classic fluids and structures, or maybe it's when I first started working, electric motors are pretty much designed in a spreadsheet, right? And now we use Ansys Maxwell to really get that extra 1 or 2% out of the geometry. And the configuration can make a huge difference over the lifetime of a vehicle or something. So,
yeah, for sure. Especially for the equipment that it's produced in a large volume, like electric motors. They're everywhere, or pumping equipment, or rotating machinery. They're so ubiquitous.
Yes,
Is that the word? They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
So millions and millions of them. If we can improve 1% efficiency of one, it all adds up.
It really, really, really does. So put you on the spot a little bit here, and if you can talk about it, what is your favorite application of Ansys for sustainability that a customer has done?
Oh gosh, that's such a difficult question, Eric.
The last one you looked at, probably.
No, it's really it's really touching every single industry segment that we work with. I've seen it everywhere. I mean, I spoke a little bit about energy.
Right.
I mentioned just a little bit of electrification of vehicles, like in transportation, but there's also sustainability in aviation, right? Everybody's focused essentially on reducing the carbon footprint. We see it in healthcare. We see it in consumer products, making more efficient in terms of water usage, electricity usage, dishwashers, washing machines, it's cell phones, everything you touch, everything that we use on a daily basis, everything that we think of using, or, that we don't even think of. It's being looked at how to, again, make it more efficient, better, greener. So it's really hard for me, honestly, to pick one example.
Yeah, I get it.
And customers are like so creative. Like, I spoke even about, cleaning the space junk. So really, it's everything is being looked at and worked on.
It really is everywhere. It's kind of funny that
it's pervasive.
It is pervasive, right? And simulation plays such an important role in getting those numbers better for these things. I just and an ability to visualize it and think about it and do what if studies, and you brought up digital twins, which I think we're seeing more and more people apply to getting more efficiency and lower footprints of various kinds out of their products. So
yeah, but because we know when the products are designed, they are designed for certain,
right.
range of operating conditions or nominal conditions, right? And then, once they're in a field, sometimes, things happen and they're outside of the range, or even if they're in a range, you really, if we know exactly what are the, operating conditions, being temperature, pressure, humidity, whatever it is that's relevant for that particular machine or product, you really can, tweak things and bring it into a sweet spot where it's more energy efficient or, produces less carbon or, just bring it to the operating point where, it's more efficient. And like I said, it has a lower carbon footprint. So it's a huge benefit having, that real life insight into the state of the product and, being able to say, you know what, let's, for example, just like a knobs, reduce RPM or increase this particular, condition or whatever. And then you kind of can drive it toward that sweet spot of operation.
So cool. So are you involved in the Ansys Earth Rescue project? Is that something you get to be part of?
Yeah, so I had the pleasure and honor to be involved with the very first episode of Earth Rescue when we launched it last year.
Yeah.
Since then, there will be multiple episodes, and each episode actually focuses on a variety of, highlights different customers and brings light to different problems. So sometimes it's about, transportation, sometimes it's about energy systems, material sections. So it's really across a variety of industries, variety of use cases, and also a variety of customers. You will have from your mature, global corporations to startups to universities, so we're highlighting all kinds of innovative activities and ways and what goes on in the research and technology development.
Yeah, I think it's another sign of the commitment that the company is making to it. So it's you can, and so if you go to ansys.com/earth-rescue, you can see it. It's very well produced. It's kind of like National Geographic for Ansys. I really enjoyed it, and I've shared it with people who aren't in the simulation world to get them a better understanding of what simulation can do for them. It's kind of cool, and you can sign up to get an announcement when they are they done, or are there more episodes coming?
There are more episodes coming, so we're continuing. So and to your point, it was made on purpose or intentionally, such that it's not for simulation experts; it's for everyday people to kind of bring. Illustrate, what the engineers and are doing and how, what the role, how are we helping out these pressing challenges?
Yeah. So cool. So just, it's a lot of different things. The video, a real focus in the, I know I've sat in on product management meetings when they're talking about which features to prioritize and really thinking about the impact to sustainability of adding new features. Customers want to do this. We need to make sure that we support them with this feature. It is kind of throughout the company, people think about it, even to the point where it's like, can we do this over Teams? Because, carbon footprint. I don't want to fly out there. So it's a big driver. So it does seem like everybody's on board with it. So is there, before we wrap it up, is there anything you want to share with our listeners that we didn't cover that they need to know about, what Ansys is doing in this area, what simulation is doing in this area? All right. Well, I think we covered everything. I'm sure as soon as we get off the call, we'll think of something we didn't cover, but definitely do check out the websites that we talked about here, and pay attention to some of the events coming up. I know there's some YouTube videos out there, and this topic, Ansys people, including you, are out there talking about this all over the place. But the first step is to really just reach out to whoever you get your answers from if you have any questions about this, and they'll get you to the right person. Love talking about this. Love seeing the progress. Really appreciate your time, and I really big thanks. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, chatting, Eric. It's a pleasure being with you.
Yeah, bye. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So, really appreciate everything that Pepi had to share. And I can say honestly that I've talked to other people besides her, throughout the organization at Ansys, and these efforts are far from greenwashing. They're real about this. This is something that they're doing across their customer base as well as within their own company. So they're really serious about it. And those customers and employees are really making an impact out there. They're truly moving the needle on sustainability, using, as we just talked about, Ansys simulation tools to kind of drive better designs and new designs and really changing things. So really proud to be a part of that. So to learn more, visit the website or reach out to whoever your support is from for Ansys tools. And also, if you have a really great sustainability story that you're able to share, please contact those same people. They probably want to hear about it, and maybe share it with other folks as well. Can't make any promises there, but it's always good that they know what people are doing with the tool, and it helps them set goals and where they need to focus within the product. So, since the topic is sustainability, you may be asking yourself, what can PADT do to help our sustainability efforts? And I'm glad you asked, because that is this episode's commercial. PADT is all about providing the tools and services engineers need to design, build, and maintain every product. And as we talked about in the interview, optimizing every aspect of these products is fundamental to increasing sustainability. We can provide you with the Ansys tools you need, and the real world support from practicing engineers to actually apply those tools effectively. Our 3D printing sales and support team can deliver the systems you need to prototype and even manufacture clean tech products or optimize any product. And our consulting team can bring the power of simulation and comprehensive product development and testing to provide you with a start to finish engineering capability or supplement your own team where you need some help. Every day, our customers and our staff are working to increase efficiency, implement new, greener materials, get new technologies that reduce carbon, decrease energy usage, and minimize material usage. All of that driven by simulation. We are not just talking about sustainability. We're doing it. We have been a sponsor and now mentor for the Clean Tech Open. We have dozens of long-term customers in the alternative energy and other sectors focused on sustainability, including solar, nuclear, water, carbon sequestration, and power generation efficiency, to name a fraction of the areas where we help people with their goals. So if you need assistance with your existing product, proving out a new design or solving a tough technical problem, or maybe you need to take your benchtop prototype to a manufacturable design, go ahead and contact PADT at info@padtinc.com or give us a call at 1-800-293-PADT, and let's talk about how we can help meet your sustainability goals. Okay. Next up is the Ansys stock. So let's take a look at ANSS, which is the symbol for the stock. It finished yesterday, July 3rd, at $326.95 a share. And that's been, it's kind of been hovering there in the 320s and 330s since the end of March. So I think on March 31st, it peaked for the most recent peak this year. And it's been kind of hanging out around there for a while now. So for the past 12 months, that means they're up 36.1%, and the S&P 500 is up 16.3%. So pretty much doubling the performance of the S&P 500, which is good to see. And we'll see how things do. Inflation is slowing out there. Maybe interest rates will come down. We'll see. But there's still a lot of uncertainty and weirdness in the world out there, a lot of turmoil. So we'll see how all that plays out and how the Ansys stock does with it. So we'll keep our eye on it. And of course, they'll be releasing their first half numbers in about 2 months. In Ansys news, really important press release for those doing design, driving their designs with simulation, and that's that you can now do high-frequency electromagnetic simulation of antennas in the Ansys Discovery product. So design engineers or people doing some upfront analysis can do the same initial simulation, do some initial simulation as they iterate on their designs of antennas. And everything these days has an antenna in it. So I think that's really, really cool. So high frequency has now joined fluids, thermal, and structural in Ansys Discovery. And we're really excited about the ability for people to do really quick simulation in this area. Because like I said, everything has an antenna in it these days, so we need to be able to do that. Another story I thought was kind of cool was Ansys just opened up an office in Rwanda in partnership with Carnegie Mellon. So there's a lot of details to that. Go ahead and read the story there on the Ansys news page. It's kind of a neat effort that they're doing with the university to give those students a chance and local engineers a chance to be part of the Ansys family. Kind of a neat thing that's going on there. Also, in line with today's interview is a story about how Rolls-Royce, they make those really big jet engines, partnered with Ansys and Intel. And let me just read the blurb because it's better than me trying to rephrase it. Rolls-Royce leverages Ansys multiphysics simulation solutions and Intel's HPC to decrease operational power consumption and physical prototyping while developing more energy and fuel efficient engines. So it's really what we talked about today, right? It's using simulation, using the digital twin, doing virtual prototyping in order to get more efficiency, burn less fuel, less emissions, et cetera, et cetera. And they do it with less testing as well. So really good example of what we talked about today. So definitely read that. We do have some news from PADT this month. We did a press release on this. We partnered with Arizona State University, ASU, on 2 R&D projects as part of something called the New Economy Initiative here in the state of Arizona. And this is basically some support from the state for some fundamental R&D that will help create new industry and move Arizona forward as an R&D hub. So the projects are the first one is focused on the development of a new technology to recycle and upcycle unused material to optimize additive manufacturing processes. So it's basically how can we use the unused powder in metal powder fusion in order to have a more efficient 3D printing process. And then the second is aimed at creating AI-based software capabilities that will predict the manufacturability of a new product design. So really kind of using these generative AI tools that we're all hearing about in terms of people redoing their term papers and actually applying it to manufacturing. So some pretty cool stuff there, and we'll share the results of those as they come out. And we hope to commercialize some aspect of that in the future. So my partner, Ray Chu, is the one that's actually doing all that work. And if you have any questions about it, you can contact us and I can put you in touch with him. You can also check out the article on our blog that gets into more detail. And in that article on our blog is a nice video that ASU did where I do a little bit of talking about our involvement. And then you can actually hear from the researchers at ASU who we're working with. So great stuff there. Really proud to be part of that. Let's take a look at the Ansys blog. I picked 3 articles that I think are really worth reading. They have quite a few out since we last talked, so definitely always check out the Ansys blog. But one of my favorites in a long time is called Discovering What Sets Car Sickness in Motion with Simulation. And this is a story about how Robert Bosch in Germany partnered with one of their R&D institutes, the Ferdinand Steinbeis Institute, a company called IPG, and Ansys to really explore what causes motion sickness and what we can do to the suspensions of vehicles in order to lessen it. So, if you've ever had kids that get car sick, or if you get car sick, it's kind of an interesting look at what causes it and then what we can do to fix it. And then also relevant out there because of today's discussion is an article called Overcoming Engineering Challenges Pursuing Sustainable Propulsion. Digital engineering solutions can help solve the technical challenges in aircraft propulsion. And so this is really looking at how companies use, kind of like what we talked about with the Rolls-Royce press release, use simulation to make propulsion better. And as a turbo machinery guy that started his career at what was Garrett, now Honeywell back in the day, this is really important to me, and we have tons of customers in this space that use this technology, so really cool. And then last, just a really cool use of the ZMAX products called modeling human skin and optical heart rate sensors. So, if you've got one of those smartwatches that you bought in order to plan to track your heart rate as you exercise, and maybe you do, you see the little blinky light every once in a while. So this is an article about how that works, and then how you can actually use ZMAX to model human skin in the somewhat translucent capability in human skin. Is that a capability? I guess it's actually a feature of skin to monitor your heart rate. And so it's really kind of explains how that works, and then how you can actually simulate it, which may have some other applications as well that you might be interested in. And then in our blog, we've been really busy, so we don't have a lot out there, but we did get an article published on 3D printing that really talks about how to use the new SAF H350 printer from Stratasys, why you should use it. And this is a new plastic powder-based printer that does a lot of parts really fast. So even if you're not in the 3D printing space, I recommend you check it out, because I think people are going to be doing this, kind of is getting into this more 3D printed parts instead of a prototype going into tooling and production. So making it more practical. So check that out. All right, let's look at upcoming events. So right after this episode comes out, we'll be doing a webinar called Materials Updates in Ansys Granta. So if you're not using Ansys Granta, or if you are, you should check it out, get a better view of what Ansys Granta can do and what's new in 2023 R1. It's a fantastic tool, and again, you should just check it out whether you're using it or not. We will also be at the Arizona Technology Council Aerospace, Aviation, Defense, and Manufacturing Conference, which is in Tucson this year at the U of A Health Sciences Innovation Building from 1 to 6 on the 13th of July. So if you're in Arizona or in Tucson especially, do come down for that conference. PADT will have a booth. We're a sponsor for that as well. And then I'll be attending the 16th Annual Tech CEO Leadership Retreat. So this is for leaders in the technology community in the state of Arizona, and we get together once a year, usually in a cooler place than downtown Phoenix, and kind of talk about leadership and what's going on in the state of Arizona. So we recommend you come to that if you're a leader who is listening to this podcast. That's pretty much it for the month of July. That's going to be July 24th. We're going to be at that. We've got some events in September, but right now August looks pretty clear. So hopefully that'll change the next time we talk. So that's events. That's all we got going on for now. So I think that's it. So I want to thank everybody for listening on this 4th of July. I'm going to go start slathering my ribs with barbecue sauce for dinner. Don't forget to subscribe at www.padtinc.com/opt-in, and that is subscribing to our newsletter so you know what's going on in the world of PADT and Ansys. But you can also subscribe to this podcast. You can do that. You can do both. Go ahead and spread the word. Let other people know about what we're doing here. And as always, do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you for joining us for the All Things Ansys podcast, episode 120. As a reminder, this podcast is not affiliated in any way with Ansys Inc., and the opinions expressed are those of the people on the show only and not of their current or former employers. For more information, visit www.padtinc.com/blog, and please share your thoughts and questions through an email to podcast@padtinc.com. See you next time.